So I thought I would talk about Chief Architect and how I use the layout to generate my construction documents when creating plans for permit. So this is Chief Architect. I'm on page 0 of layout. And page 0, anything you put on page 0 will be on every single sheet that you create. Now, the cool part is if it's not on the actual sheet, then it can exist out here in this gray area and it'll never print. So you can keep a lot of information off the sheet that you might need access to and not have to worry about it printing. So let's just go to sheet 1. And so I created, it's blocked. So I'm going to unblock it. I use EE for that. So what it is a list right justified over here and another list left justified over here, and then the title. And that may cause some people some grief if you have, there you go, block that back. If you want to have everything left justified. But what I wanted was this. It just seems clean to me. Maybe I'm wrong. I just added LiDAR. But sometimes I use these and sometimes I don't, but I put it on the plan just because. So this is a 1,000 square foot detached, hang on, somebody's driving by, accessory dwelling unit, Dadu. And in fact, I wonder if I have that up here. I probably don't. I should add that. I don't even have ADU. Okay, well, good. See, I'm catching things. We're going to get to that about being your own checker. But anyways, this is Washington State, so we have a whole energy code thing. And because the size of this building, we have to come up with 5 credit points, which pretty much the state dictates how you build this thing for energy. Part of the tools in Chief, I was able to, let's see if this goes back here. Yeah, so you can do a polyline, automated polyline around the perimeter of the building, and it will only highlight the conditioned space. And then you can do text, which is like area, and then I round it to 0, and then I put the SF behind it. And then you have to draw an arrow to connect it to the outside of the polyline, and that will give you the square footage. I'm sure there's other ways to do this, but this is how I do it. And I threw it on the front page just so that the plan checker, when they're looking at this, they can confirm that, yeah, it's 1,000 square feet. Yep, it's 1,000 square feet. Okay. Bunch of language here. This is your standard building language, little requirements and stuff. And if you'll notice, I have different counties over here. Kitsap, Clay Alum, there's another Kitsap. That's actually in Oregon. But this one's going to be in Snohomish. And they're all a little bit different. You know, some of them have a different snow load or a different seismic. And so you want to make sure you get the right one for the right location. The original plan that was sent to me by the builder that he wanted put into plans for permit had this really different roof style. And so, you know, I'm thinking, well, you could save some money, just make it a common pitch across here. But I think they like this look. It breaks it up a little bit, makes it a little more custom. So that's what they got. There's the draft survey. So what I did is I was able to trace over that and put in things that they're not, this is draft, so it's not complete yet. But how they're going to get a driveway. They'd love to get 2 of these Dadus on this property if they can. So that's kind of cool. Whoops, going the wrong direction. So here we go. I like to do a footing plan sometimes. It depends on if they can monopore this. It's a little harder to do, but there are concrete guys that'll do it. But I'll throw in a diagonal just so that good framers and good concrete guys will always pull out their own calculator and calculate your measurements to make sure. So don't just trust me. But since I've already drawn it to the exact sizes, 18 by 40, it's easy enough to let the software give you this length. I don't type this in. I just pull the dimension, and that's what it is. So you could even check it right now. You could take a Construction Master. Hey, let's just do this. Let's go to Build Calc. And let's do 40 feet run, 18 feet rise diagonal, 43, 10, and 3/8. Let's see, does it zoom in? Yeah, 43, 10, and 3/8. So there you go. And then for down here, it's over the footing, so that's a little larger. Thickened slab at overhead door. That's just so that when you drive in, you don't crack the slab if it's only 4 inches thick immediately as soon as you drive in. And this 3D shows that perfectly. They dig out, throw some rebar in there, and carry on. Here's some foundation details. I like to try and keep things, or so that the foundation guy can jump back and forth really quick. So when I'm plan checking, I found out that I had forgot this whole second floor system. And that was kind of cool because a friend of mine, he put this plan into AI. I think it was Grok. And it came back saying that, I didn't have this, didn't have that. And so as I was reading it, it was forcing me to actually go back and check. And imagine my surprise when AI was wrong. So I did the test. I don't pay for Grok or whatever, so it wouldn't take my PDF. But I went to Chat GPT and put it in there, and it started saying how I didn't specify exact stairs and stuff. Well, you're going to see, once again, AI was wrong. So I have no fear of AI taking over when it comes to things designed by humans. There's just too much experience and intuition, and AI is not a thinking tool. It's just a vast volume of words that get interconnected in ways that the software says, hey, this might be, this might be correct, and it just shoots out an answer. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's not. This is critical as a framer. When I first started, I was working with some guys, and on one house, we just joisted it, and we're like, whatever. Well, the plumber cut the joist out. We had to come back and double this one, double that one, and box across. So don't do that. Always know where the toilets are. So now that I'm a designer and I do less framing, I'm going to put those toilets exactly where they are on the main floor plan, but I'm going to put it on your joisting plan so that you can be aware. And I might even dimension to them, but that will only become a problem if somehow the foundation's not correct and you're trying to follow the foundation instead of the plans. That's another no-no. Don't do that. All right. Here's the plan views. Here's the floor framing. I'm starting to, in my wall framing on the first and second floor is where I put all my dimensions, just because it just seems like that's what the framer wants to see, and it's to the face of framing. And then on the plan views, I put in all the, like the kitchen appliances and cabinets and all that stuff with no dimensions so that you can just look at it and get a flow for it. Along the stairs, you always want to balloon frame, because if you don't, you'll have a hinge. And I've seen houses built where all the walls are built with pre-cut 9-foot studs or 10-foot studs, and then they joist. And at this point here, they'll just run some, whatever your joists are, 11 to 7/8. They'll just run a couple rim boards with blocking between them, and then they'll put subfloor all over this and a strip of subfloor 5.5 wide, and then they'll put a wall on top of that, and they think that's good. But this section here has a hinge point, and in any big seismic movement, that might become a problem. So I boxed it in and told, this is for the framers, balloon frame this stuff. So I thought I'd help them out. Here's your pre-cut 104 5/8 9-foot stud. Here's your 11 7/8 eye joist, your 3/4 subfloor, and then here's your 92 5/8 second floor pre-cuts. And what that gives you is, if you do all the math, you can cut your balloon studs this tall. And a good framer is going to think that the designer doesn't know what he's doing, and he's going to double check with his own methods. So don't just trust me, but trust me, bro. Okay, the roof, this is SketchUp. And what I did is I modeled the truss, the ones with the verticals, that's the gable truss right here. And then the ones with the webs, I just I kind of guessed at how that would look. I don't know. And really, the truss manufacturer is going to figure this out. All I wanted to make sure was that this king stud, or yeah, king post is in each truss so that we have a place to put the plywood on the roof, put blocking in so that the plywood has a way to stop. And on this side, you'll have bird blocks for ventilation or some kind of ventilation system, but you don't need to have the ventilation leak out here. You can just plywood right up to this blocking. And you'll have wall sheathing all the way across here. That's why there's those blocks, because the convection will come here and then it will go up. It'll come right past this and go up. And so this is where you would have your vented soffit, or however you want to. Probably even better would be, let's go to the next page. It would be better to have like hawks or some kind of exhaust system across the top. And this is also SketchUp, but it's SketchUp looking straight, not perspective, but the other view, and from the front. So this is technically a picture. And then you use, let me show you. You use this tool down here. Where is it? Where? Oh, I know why. Okay. To get this the right size, here's the picture. See this tool here, or there's like blue and orange or whatever, this one. You click on it, and then you go into the model, and you, I guess I could show you. You would go in here, and you would click. And now if it's a really thick line, what I like to do is I'll start right on the edge of the line, and then go all the way over here, and go on the same side, like over to it, right there, and type in 18 feet, which, look at that, it's exact already. 18 feet, enter. And then what I'm going to do is go like that. Yeah, see how this moved a little bit? There's the middle of that. And then yep, there we go. So, it's because of the picture, there was no snap points. I had to use point to point. I could have drawn this in Chief probably. I don't know that for a fact, but I probably could have. And here's the other thing is on the gable truss, if you can get the gable truss guys to cut 1.5 inches out of all these blocks when they build this whole thing will come down 1.5 inches. And then you won't be notching into the top cord, because every truss document says do not do that. But then they send out gable trusses that are the same height as the web truss. So you're kind of screwed, because you have to get your outlooks out there to hold up your outer gable overhang. So there's that. And then once this is to the right length, you would send it to layout at whatever scale. And so I sent it at 1/2 inch scale. And this is where it gets funny. So one of the, what do you call it? One of the AIs said, yeah, the stairs are suggestions. They're not actual. And I'm like, wait a sec. So I know the risers, I know the tread cut, and I know that we're using 2x12s for treads. So, and then if it was smart enough, like this is the code. Okay, so that's why it's generic. But if the AI was smart enough to read this, I put in the floor to floor height, I put in the number of risers, I put in the tread. This is the cut size, what you're going to cut your stringer. And if you use 2x12, that leaves 1.25 inches nosing. And the software, This happens to be numbers instead of Excel, but I got it in both. I like this really, really long number. You would never use this on the job site, but when you use this in the software, you can come down here and you can actually offset that level of precision. So when you get to the top, you're not even off a 16th. I mean, look how many decimal points that is. And then step diagonals is something I've done for a long time, because when you're using a framing square and you're tracing out these things and you're lining up, like if this was 7 and say 3/16 and 10, you put your stair nuts on there and you're sliding it along and you're tracing these out. Well, you're lining up visually each time on the previous line. And if you use a really fat pencil or if you get off a little bit, you cause errors. And by the time you get to the top, it might not be perfect. Normal people will never know. You'll walk on them, you'll never know. But if you want to be precise, you drive a nail at the bottom and you pull the step diagonals. So you would pull and mark 1 foot 0 and 5/16, 2 foot 0 and 5/8, 3 foot 0 and 7/8, 4 foot 1 and 3/16, and that's feet inch 16ths. And you just make a mark along the edge at the step diagonals. And then that way, as you're bringing your framing square along, you line up with those marks and trace it out, and it keeps you exact through the entire length of the stringer. And I have the XL version of this for everybody on a Windows machine, and I'll just share it with whoever wants it. You just gotta, in the comments, just say you want it, and I'll put the Dropbox link up there. Here we go. I got this from Adams County, I think. It talks about the energy credits and all the different options. And when you see a little number in a box like this, that's just referring to this notes on all these. Here's the path to get to what we're doing. And so it's a little confusing, but I'm just giving it back the way they send it. And then here you go. They specifically want the exact unit that you're going to use. So there's that. So this is it. This, and I end up going round and round, plan. I check and check. In fact, I'll print this to PDF a couple times, and then I'll go through it. And that's where I asked a good buddy of mine. I said, "Hey man, here we go. Here's the latest." And that way, if he needs 1,000 square foot ADU, he's kind of got an idea. Here's a 2-story version, and it's not a bad little plan, really. It's small. It's a 1-car garage. It's not very deep. You know what? We're going to do this. See that little piece of something that's on a different layer? I'm just going to do that. So that's the thing that kills me. Let's just go fix this. This shouldn't be showing on this plan view, so we're going to turn it off. Even the beam schedule shouldn't be showing on this. And then let's go back and see. I just turned that off. So yeah, it's not there. But I do need it back here. Beam schedule and floor joist framing. Boom. Okay. So that's the nice thing about plan views. When you're in plan views, let's right here. Some people like to jump up and down from like different floors, and in their plan view, this will say any floor. And I can't stand that. I've had too many times, like you just saw, something will show up on a layer that I don't want it showing up, which just means I have it turned on in multiple layer sets. But I like to control the views from layout. And I like to build, like if I don't ever draw these get drawn automatically, these elevations. But like if I need to go work on the survey, I want to double click it and I want it to open up the survey plan, and I can work on this. And then let's do 802 maybe. Okay, so now it says date 02 maybe. And we'll go back to the main page. Date 02 maybe. And so that's how layout works. Layout is, as Renee Rabbit says, this is like a PDF compiler. And you're compiling all these things to turn it into a PDF. this little window, if you're from AutoCAD, this is like a viewport. They call it a layout, but it's the same thing. What you're doing is you're creating a box and you're looking through the box at whatever scale at this model. Here's the model, and the models are always drawn 1-to-1 scale. So, for example, this box is 40 feet that way. I don't know if you can see that dimension. And then if I click here, it's 18 feet the other. So whenever you draw on the model, if this is new to you, you draw everything at full real world size. And then when you click send it to layout, this is the box that comes up. And I think it was like 1 foot equals 10. Let's try that. Or 1 inch equals 10 feet. And then watch this. We're going to say, sure, let's send it. And see that? It sent it right to the middle. I already have the exact same thing. See how it's tracking the same information. So that's how that works. Now you could put other things in your plan, say you want it, and then all you have to do is just come over like this and show what you want to show. And then the other thing that's kind of cool is, let's say you have, let's put something in there that inside out corners. Let's try that. This isn't where I would put it, but let's say you wanted to show people how you're going to do the inside corner and the outside corner for trim. And then you would just send this. And for me to know what scale this is, I go and I look at the text. This is 1.5 inches, so that's 3/4 inch scale. So I would do this. I would change this to 3. And all the scaling does is make sure that the text is the right size. I want 3/32 on the layout page. So when you look at all this text and that, it's all the same size. And there you go. That's how easy that is. But layout is where you're going to set up your business logo. And I blacked out or whited out the address. Just, why share that out there? And that's it. So like if I double click this, it takes me to this model right here. And I like to use notes because I can only imagine how many liters and texts I would have in here that would just make this a mess. So dimension everything. And here's another thing. Sometimes when you hit dimension, it'll just, let me see. It'll dimension to like one side of a wall and not the other. And all of a sudden you'll have a length that's got a 1/2 inch in there instead and a 1/2 inch in here. And whenever you see that, here, let's just move this and see what happens. Yeah, so if it auto-dimensioned and you've got 18, 5.5, it's still correct. It's just if you can remove the 1/2 inch by just taking it off of there and putting it there, it just makes your plans look cleaner. And don't just set your default to be to the nearest inch, because I've seen that and it kills me. People will just drag a wall and all of a sudden they'll think it's right. But then if you highlight the wall and now you see this 22 and you click on it and it's like 22.0165 whatever, then you're not exactly 22 feet. The software is saying you are, but you're lying. And what you would do is you would actually highlight that long number and just type in 22 feet and it will adjust where this wall is to the proper dimension. So take the time to do that, because nothing worse than you're laying out a building and you get to the end and there's up to a couple inches or 1/2 inch or whatever it is before you get to where you're supposed to be. And the framer's going to go, oh, crap. Okay, so don't give me that, oh, close enough. It doesn't matter. That's the wrong answer, man. So design it right. Let's do oh yeah, so this is SketchUp. The 3D picture is SketchUp, but the notes are in Chief. So I'll draw stuff in SketchUp, and then, in fact, let's just do that. Let's fire that up real quick, see if we can crash the whole system since we're recording. In fact, I need to help a guy. So right now, if you look up here, these are the scenes. Oh, did it? It didn't crash, did it? No. Okay. These are scenes. Right now, this scene is from the front, so typically you're going to start like this. And this is where having a 3D mouse is super nice because you can move and get things right. And you draw one of these, and then you group it, and then you move paste. Here, let's do this. You do move paste, and let's say we do, I don't know, 72, enter, and then you want 6 copies of that, 6x, boom, and there you go. That's how that works. So this is kind of a speed course in doing CAD. SketchUp is a little more slow because you design each piece. And if you're really smart, you tag everything so that you can turn different layers on and off. And I didn't even do the wall studs or the wall framing. A lot of times I'll do that, but on this one I just needed to show the roof. So, and then front view is a scene, takes me to here. And then if I just scroll out with the scroll wheel, I can come over here. And this is that picture I told you about. I can dimension it in SketchUp. But the thing about SketchUp dimensions, you gotta change them up a little bit. Like that's way too small. I could come over here, bring this over, do this height, and then what scale did I have that at? Let's say 4.5. And I don't really like that. There we go. Medium, light. I don't know, whatever. Let's get rid of this. There we go. So I could have done that and then exported it. But use the right tool, man. Use the right tool for the job. And it's 30 minutes. Let's knock this off.